Hey everyone, Mike back. In this video, we're going to go over registering our LMs into the GM. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at the lab just to take a little refresher. So in this case, I have my physical host here that I showed you before, and we have an LM for our San Francisco location. Again, this is just an NSX-T manager, nothing special there. We have another LM, local manager, for Los Angeles. Again, nothing special there. These two were deployed as regular NSX-T managers. And then I did deploy a third appliance, which is my global manager. I've said this a few times, but this is the same OVA. You literally just change the role to global manager, and now you have a global manager. Now, once you've got to that point, you need to register the LMs to that GM so that you can have that GM be your global manager and manage all of these local sites, right? So that's what we're going to do today, is register those LMs into the GM. So let's flip over to the lab and we'll take a look at what we got. So first, I'll go to this tab. I have my LA NSX-T LM. So this is just my NSX-T manager for Los Angeles. Again, in my case, this is one appliance. In a production deployment, this would be 3. Now, it's pretty much a basic deployment. In my case, I have some minimal config in here already, but nothing required for federation. I was just too lazy to redeploy it, to be honest with you. Now, the one thing you do want to do, I'm going to go ahead and log into this, is regardless, if you have 1 LM or 3, it doesn't matter, to use it in federation, you need to set up a VIP for that manager cluster. So to do that, you're going to go over to System, and then you're going to head over to Appliances. And what you're going to do is right under Virtual IP, I believe it'll say Set or something like that. You'll see a blue link here, and you'll need to set that, and that'll be the virtual IP. So basically now you see it says 251.51. If I actually, let me go ahead and open up a command prompt just to show you guys if you're not familiar with this. So if I actually ping, look at my address bar, la-nsxt.home.lab. If I ping that, la-nsxt.home.lab, look at what it resolves to. It's actually resolving to 107. So basically what happens is it's hitting this VIP, and then that VIP is being passed off basically. And in this case, that's why it says assigned to 251.107. So basically, if I were to lose this manager and I had another one, then eventually this VIP would say assigned to .108, for example, or whatever my other manager's IP was. Regardless, like I said, though, you do have to have this VIP set up, even though we only have one manager. If you don't do that, it won't register to your GM. The other thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have an Enterprise Plus license on all of your LMs that you plan on registering to that GM. If you have an LM or just regular NSX-T manager and you're never going to register it, you don't need that functionality or that license. But if you do want to make it part of the Federation deployment, it will fail when we go to register in the next step. So keep that in mind. Moving on, we have in this next tab, we have the San Francisco NSX-T manager. And again, there's really nothing to show you here. I am going to log in because we will probably want to be logged in at some point. But basically, it's still just an NSX-T manager. If I go to System, just like we did before, and Appliances, and we see here we have a different VIP. The other one was 251.51. This one is 50, and it's assigned to this NSX-T manager right here. Now keep in mind, when you do a Federation deployment, the LMs are still responsible for prepping local transport nodes. They're responsible for setting up your uplink profiles, transport zones. All of that is still the job of the LM. So you still have to do configuration inside of the LM. But one thing that is nice is if we hop over to our last tab to the GM, you see this drop down right here. Currently, it just gives me one option, Global Manager. Once we add the LMs, we'll actually see the LMs here, and we'll be able to click those and go straight to managing those from the Global Manager, which is kind of nice. So in that case, let's go over to System. We're going to go ahead and add a couple of sites. So we're going to head down to Location Manager. So I went to System, and then down here, Location Manager. And we see right here, if we scroll down, we see it says add on-prem location. That's what we need to do. Now from here, I'm going to give it a name. I'll just do SF will be my location name. And for the VIP, so basically this is why we have to have that VIP, right? You see it pre-populates. I had set this up previously and tore it down. So I have to put that VIP in. In my case, I have a DNS entry that points to that VIP. So in this case, that would be .51 and .50 for each site respectively. So in my case, we're doing San Francisco. We'll go ahead and go with SF. That's just the FQDN. You could just put the IP of that VIP as well. That would be fine. And now I'm going to enter the username and the credentials for the LM, and that's good. Now the next step is you need to put this SHA-256 thumbprint in. This is actually going to be from your LM. And so what I do is I actually SSH into that VIP. So in our case, we're doing San Francisco. So that should be San Francisco NSX-T VIP.home.lab. I'm just going to SSH into that manager, and we're going to pull that thumbprint off of it. So if I can talk and type, let's see, there we go. Okay, so we're in. Now, one thing that's important to know is you want to execute this command that I'm about to execute after you set up that VIP. If you haven't done that, it'll actually be a different thumbprint and you'll have issues. So in this case, the command is going to be, let me go ahead and expand this a bit. This command is going to be get certificate, and it will be cluster thumbprint. That's it. That's the command you need. You'll need to run this on each of the LMs, or if you have multiple LMs, just hit your VIP and then execute it once and you're done. In this case, I'm going to hit enter, and we see it comes back with this crazy long hex string, so I'm going to take that and copy that. And all I need to do is copy and paste it in here. There we go. And then we're going to hit check compatibility. This is where it's doing that license check. So if you don't have the Enterprise Plus license, this part fails. All right, so that looks good. I didn't mention it, but it also checks version just to make sure your versions are the same between GM and LM. In this case, it's good. So I'm going to hit save. Now, the one thing I will mention for brownfield environments is we saw a warning there, but it tells you basically once you add this LM in here, anything that's already configured in the GM that's global will be pushed to that LM. So keep that in mind. So if it's a brownfield environment, you want to take into consideration things like, do I have global security policies already configured or anything like that? Because those will take precedence over the LM configurations. Just keep that in mind. Now we see here under locations, I put SF. It's showing like it has all kinds of issues, but it'll be fine. It's just going to take a while. So I've noticed it seems to take a few minutes till it shows healthy here. So while that's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and add our Los Angeles one. I'm just going to add this. I'll just call it LA, and it will be la-nsxt.vip.home.lab. And I'll throw my credentials for this one as well. And we're going to have to do the same thing. We got to go get that thumbprint. So let's go ahead and SSH into that one. Okay, so we're here inside of this manager as well. This is on the Los Angeles side. We're going to do that command again. Get certificate cluster thumbprint. We'll just run that. There we go. That looks good. And again, I'm going to copy that, paste it in here, check compatibility. We should be good, and we are. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. All right, so that one's coming in. And now if we see, let's go ahead and refresh this. We should see San Francisco starting to look good. So we're seeing this error saying default transport zone not found. So it's actually looking for the regular like default transport zone. So if we go over, let's start with SF. Let's go there. Let's look at our transport zones. The reason I'm getting this, by the way, is because I've had this deployed. I ripped everything apart and I'm basically redeploying it. So that's why you shouldn't normally run into that. But if we go to transport zones, what it's looking for should be that default transport zone, this one right here. We see it is actually a member here, so that's fine. Let's go look at our nodes. So I did prep all of these hosts. Okay, so everything looks fine here. So let's go back to the GM and let's just give it a couple minutes because I think we actually should be fine. Because there isn't, again, I said it earlier, I didn't make any specific configurations to the LMs. There are some hosts inside of those sites that are prepped, but again, there's really nothing specific to federation. Like I said, you can think about it as you can take LMs, you can have them fully configured and ingest them into a federation deployment. That's perfectly fine. So there really shouldn't be any issues. And yeah, actually, there we go. That's what we wanted. So now it looks perfect. So everything I said about having previous configuration and I messed up transfer zones, just forget about that. I didn't say anything about that. All right, so we have our locations added. We've got LA here. Everything looks good. We see sync status is success. That is a tongue twister, by the way. And that looks good for both of them. So it's got both of our sites. We see here it shows the managers in each site. So if I had a cluster of 3, I would actually see 1, 2, 3 for Los Angeles, and then the same thing, 1, 2, 3 for San Francisco. I don't, but again, it's a lab, so it's fine. Now, if you're talking about a brownfield environment and you have existing configuration from the LM and you do want to import it into the GM and convert it into a global object, this means it can then span multiple sites. You can do that. It says right here, right, this blue banner says, we found objects and policies in this location. Do you want to import them? I have groups. I have, I think, security policies. I have probably some segments, maybe, something like that. So I have some basic, just regular NSX-T config, nothing heavy, just a couple of things. But if I say import, like I said, it will convert those to global objects, and you don't get to pick which objects. It's going to be all or nothing. And the other thing is you only get one shot at it. So you can only import, and this process, by the way, is called onboarding. So in this case, I'm going to say no thanks. And let's say I change my mind later and I just say, you know what, I do want to onboard those objects from that LM. You can just go to actions right here and go to import to GM, and that'll do the same thing. So just keep that in mind. Now, once you do that, it will be grayed out and it'll actually show a little message here. It says imported to GM or something like that. So like I said, it's a one-shot thing. And in our case, I'm good with this. I'm not going to import anything here. I've got these LMs added. Now, here's the thing. So now if I go back to my main page right here, this should have updated. So yeah, there we go. If I click that drop down, now I see these two on-prem locations. These are my LMs for Los Angeles and San Francisco. So if I click LA here, we see it actually launches me into the LM for LA. Again, that's a tongue twister too. So now I'm managing that LM. So I can do things here, like let's go to inventory. And we'll go to groups. Let me just demonstrate something. So I'm going to say add group. I'll just call this Mike's Group X, something like that. Something simple. All right, so I created that group. You just saw me create that group, right? Now, if I go back to the GM though, and now we go to inventory again, same place we were just at, but now we're on the GM. Look at that, it's not there. So why is that? Well, that's because any objects created in the LM are viewable by the LM and not the GM. Anything created inside of the GM is viewable by all of the LMs, essentially. Or we have some control over the span, so let's not get hung up on that detail, but hopefully you get the point. All right, so now we've got those LMs added. So effectively at this point, we have a federation deployment. We don't have any stretch networks. We don't have anything, any security policy spanning everything or anything like that. We will absolutely do that. So we're going to wrap this up where we're at now. We will get back into setting up our stretch networks and segments and all of that, connecting some workloads to it and all of that stuff. So that's good for now. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next video.